great learning resource centre can be a powerful tool, but how can the LRC manager help it to achieve its full potential?
Lots of different subjects, then obviously they'd be spread out.
In this programme, Anne Robinson from Nicholas Chamberlain Technology College in Bedworth, Warwickshire, and Linda Hayes from Oaks Park High School in Essex talk about how they support readers, run successful lessons in the library, and spread the word among their teaching colleagues.
What our school thinks about its library is the measure of how it feels about education.
Well, there's been a massive amount of research done all over the world now, which I've drawn together on my own website, which shows the impact of school libraries on student achievement. It's absolutely undisputable now. And so there's so much material out there to show to teachers, to show to SMT. Alongside that, we can use the new self-evaluation package to actually measure our own impact. And we can use those kinds of measures in reports to heads and SMT to show what we do.
Anyone who has a library and a garden wants for nothing.
If you're looking for a book that you just don't know what to pick, she'll give you ideas and stuff.
So what have you read recently that you've liked?
Vicky Angel.
You liked Vicky Angel, and that was a Jacqueline Wilson, wasn't it?
Yeah.
OK, so do you want us to try and find something that's like that or something that's a little bit different?
Something that's like that.
Something that's like that. So a lot of children who aren't used to libraries or bookshops find a whole wall of books quite intimidating and they don't know where to start. I mean, that's partly my job, is to help them with that choice. But the way we organise books in the LRC can also help that. So we have quite a large, just normal A to Z fiction sequence, but we also separate some of them out into genres. So we'll have a horror section, a science fiction, a fantasy section, a romance section, whatever, and we change that around from time to time just to give it that freshness. We say, well done, because you've just read one of these books.
Anne has developed a programme called Steps to Reading Success, which she uses with all Year 7 students.
The Steps to Reading Success programme came out of observing for a couple of years what the students in the school did in terms of reading, and most of them stuck to the same kind of books all the time. But what Harry Potters have you read so far?
The new one, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
Anything else that you've read that you like that?
Not really.
Not really?
I don't read that much.
But you've really got into Harry Potter, so you are a good reader if you've read those, aren't you? So if we found some other things that were maybe about magicians and wizards, would you give them a try?
Okay.
Or have you got any hobbies and things that you have that we could get you reading things to do with your hobbies?
Video games.
Video games, what a surprise. So there's a really good book by Alan Gibbons that's set in a kind of fantasy world that's a video game. So we wanted to encourage them to read more widely and to give them rewards for doing that. Right, we'll have that on there. And we'll also give you some stickers because you've done a lot of reading there. Which is, for instance, step 1 might be a free choice. Step 2 might be read a storybook. Step 3 might be read an information book. It's all slightly different according to their level of ability.
I like Roll Down.
Oh, good. Yes, lots of people like him too. So we've got plenty of those in here, so we'll be able to encourage you to read. We also have a series of extension activities which take them further in the world of books and reading. So there's things like do an author profile, or some very simple things like make a bookmark for children who find it a struggle.
Lots of students are low ability because they've not been given the opportunity to read. Sometimes it's nothing to do with the fact that they can't read, but they've not been given the opportunity. Lots of people don't read with their kids at home. We've got lots of students who come from other countries, which English isn't their first language, so we get in, we've got dual language books for those. I had a fantastic one the other day. A little boy was after something by Michael Jackson, and I said to him, but the only thing I've got is in French, and he went, but I speak French. And he was absolutely fascinated that I've actually got this book for him, and it was in French, so it was easier for him. There we are.
Is Adam already gone?
Adam's gone, yeah. Have a good day. We have a selection of books, what we call quick reads, because I don't like the titles of easy readers, because I think then you're labelling people. and quick reads are picked up by anyone who just wants a quick read. We've got quite a lot of Barrington Stoke books there, which are the font and the colour of the paper actually aimed at people with dyslexia. Our peer mentors have a reading group in, and they're usually students with lower ability, and we support those from 8:30 in the morning up until 10 to 9 during their registration.
A lot of schools do this in their libraries. They will actually get readers from older years, say year 11s or sixth formers, to come and actually work with children who struggle.
Okay, so if we read this together.
It creates a relationship if you see people regularly doing it, and it's different from the teacher doing it or the librarian. When we meet with reluctant readers in here, we have various strategies that we use with them to try and encourage them to read more. I mean, we have a range of stories on tape, so they can sit and listen to a story instead. We pair them up so they can sit together, and they often like to read plays with each other in that way. There's a lot of simple plays from Livewire that are in the quick reads, and I'm sure there's other sources as well, that we'll buy in multiple copies so that children can sit in groups and read them to each other.
A battle school fighting.
A lot of children also like to sit with me or the teacher or with my assistant and sit and read to us so that we can encourage them with the right words, because so many children who are reluctant readers are embarrassed that they can't work out certain words. And if we can help them to feel that it's safe and no one's going to laugh at them, that makes a big difference. There was a little boy came in year 6 on his visit, and he said to me the immortal words, "Miss, you ain't never going to get me reading, never," he said. And 6 months later, he came bursting in the door, waving the book that I had given him the fortnight before, saying, "Miss, this was wonderful. This was the best thing I've ever read in my life." And it was Colin Dan's Animals of Farthing Wood. I haven't forgotten it. But that, to me, is the sort of success that a school librarian can have, and that's why I do the job.
I mean, last year we had altogether 489 classes actually use the library, which is an amazing amount. I mean, there's quite often we go whole weeks and we don't actually have an hour free. One of the ones that was quite reluctant was our science, because they was like, "Oh, science," you know. And I said, "Well, we can't do experiments in here, but we've got all the other tools that you could look at for different research. They're particularly doing electricity, etc." And it was a case of, well, we'll see. And it was a fantastic lesson. And we actually can't get rid of them now. They have lots of their lessons in here.
We used it in lessons because we had to research the Crusades in history, and it was quite cool coming in here to do history because it was a different atmosphere than coming in at lunchtime.
Make sure you got your pens out, folks.
Lessons are taught by members of staff across the curriculum rather than just one curriculum area. Anne will report to the senior management team on a regular basis about usage, terms in terms of subject areas. So the line managers of subject areas that don't appear to be using it very much are sort of cajoled into talking to their subject leaders and finding out why and trying to offer support so they can use it.
When we have a lesson in here, we try and work in the same way that a teacher would in the classroom. Right, which was the table doing Islam? A classroom is often small and controlled. A library is much bigger and can be quite a scary space for the students and the teachers sometimes. And who was doing Buddhism? You can write it like that. You can write it in different ways. And if they feel they can trust the librarian and that the outcomes that they want are actually achieved, then that's what works. Why did we do that mind mapping bit to find out what we already know? What was the point of that?
I found the NRC a godsend in teaching RE. I'm a non-specialist, so the resources in here are amazing for me, never mind for the children.
So the pilgrimage is called Hajj. Where do they go to? What's the place? Mecca. Brilliant.
We've got them children going on independent research, using the books, using the internet, using the intranet that Anne kindly sets up for us.
Pilgrimage, they exchange modern dress for 2 plain white sheep.
I love library lessons. It's such a different environment, it's a comfortable environment, it's lively.
Right, so we've got those two.
Large. Oh, Buddhism.
Now look at that one. Now you might not know that
You
one.
really are a facilitator. You're not teaching them, you're around helping them. I've had low ability year 11s in here, reading and researching and working their socks off. much more than they would in a classroom.
One of the things we try and do is to make sure that children are learning how to evaluate different sources of information. So many children think they are good at using the internet, but they've not picked up the sorts of skills that we need in terms of being critical about what they find. We're not kind of knocking the web, but we're trying to get children to use information from a variety of sources in a balanced way, so that we can build in information literacy teaching alongside the kind of subject outcomes that people want.
He dressed himself in coat and hat, he put on shoes, and after that he even brushed and curled his hair, then sat himself in Grandma's chair.
Some of our staff have come from schools where the library actually isn't used as well as it could be. A lot of them are sort of not aware of what we can do.
That my real name was different.
We use email quite a lot, and we've got a staff bulletin that goes out every week. We ask them to come and have a look, and also it's word of mouth as well. Our staff library that we're setting up is still in its infancy, but it is growing, and we ask them to recommend books that they know that are useful. And then we put that out to other staff. And again, although it's quite small anyway, it's always very well used. And I think that's good that our students see staff using it as well. It's not a kids' library, it's a library that everyone can use. We do a fair level of publicity. We try and put out newsletters to teaching staff, but we also do a very successful termly newsletter to SMT, which is basically a very positive thing about all the good things that we've been doing over the previous term. We try and put things around the school to show teachers the kind of work that we do. So we'll have a display on information literacy and how the teachers have used us. We also would like to use a lot of the feedback material we get from students, and also I had an idea of putting them in other sort of more private bits for the staff to use as well, so they can come across them when they're washing their hands. One of the most important things, I think, for a school librarian is to actually get out of the library. Now, that's not very easy if you haven't got an assistant, but I think it's really important to build in some time in the day or the week when you actually get out and get up to the staff room or get to meetings, get seen around the school and get involved with things that are happening generally in the school, not just that relate to the library. We do ever such a lot with our staff, and we take notice of the staff. It's all right asking them, but then if you don't take notice of them, then what's the point? Recently we had been in our history about Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, and I actually managed to get a copy of the book that he wrote, which was like a really obscure copy, but I really thought, yes. And you know, and it's used by the teacher a lot, because she never thought we would be able to get anything like that, and to actually show the students something that was written by the man who was the Witchfinder General, you know, was quite amazing.
You've got 3 books out already. Yeah.
The main thing is to emphasise the impact you have on teaching and learning, because that is what makes a difference to heads and makes a difference to your SMT.
I think the school library is really high up on the list of the important tools in the school, and if heads went to libraries which are good, which are functioning properly, they would actually see that it's a wonderful tool. It's just not being exploited enough.